It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
Off and running. Welcome in another edition of Musso at the Box, presented by Gotlit Light Installers, GotlitLights.com. Well, LSU eventful weekend at the box. Finally saw a few chinks in the armor. The Tigers dropped their first game of the season, but fire back with an incredible bounce back in game number 3, second game of a doubleheader on Saturday to dominate Omaha and win the series, which is the most important thing. We will talk about it all. We'll start with game 3 since that's the only one that we haven't recapped. We'll give you some thoughts on that. What changed in game number 3 from the previous 2 offensively? And, where should the worry meter be in a couple of different areas with LSU and its lineup? We'll kind of go through all of that here today. Also, of course, we'll look at the pitching staff, which outside of one inning had another phenomenal weekend. But were there a few things that you could see throughout that maybe started to point towards some separation when it comes to roles, bullpen, who will be who carries maybe more value in this spot than others? I think you maybe got a little bit of a peek behind the curtain there, just a tad. It's still 2 weeks in. There's still plenty to go. And LSU plays a game Monday night against Nichols, so their weekend really is not officially done yet. So we're going to break it all down, and I'm fired up to do so. So smash the like button. Get subscribed if you have not already on the YouTube channel and your favorite podcast app. Just search Musso at the Box. Subscribe, hit your notification bell, and that way you can take us with you wherever you may go. The show is always there. And, of course, always follow me on social media. Those handles scrolling on the screen below you if you're watching. If not, Twitter X at Musso Matthew, Instagram at Matthew Musso 1. You can find me on Facebook as well. Love connecting. Okay. LSU, 2 out of 3 from Omaha, which coincidentally was kind of the prediction here on the show. Kind of. Don't want to take full credit for that. Just said I think they take 2 out of 3, and if they get in the position to sweep, we'll talk about sweep then. They did not get in that position to sweep because, well, you eked one out Friday behind some great young pitching. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. And then we know what happened in game number 1 of the doubleheader. You saw some of the problems that started in that 6th inning Friday night continue for 8 innings on Saturday, and you were no hit through 7 2/3. The bats came alive in the 9th, but you just couldn't push the final run across. You lose. Series is even, and that sets the stage for Sunday, where you need to see plenty of improvement offensively. And that's where we'll start, because you did. And you saw it really right off the jump. LSU, in the first 2 games of this series, LSU scored 8 runs on 12 hits. They had 12 hits in the first 2 games. They had 13 hits in the final game alone. They scored 8 runs in the first 2. They scored 12 in the final game alone. You saw them get back on track. And as I said, it happened really almost immediately. The offense that you saw in game 3, the nightcap Saturday, was what you had seen basically all year. You weren't able to push anything across in the first, but you threatened with 2 runners on. And then in the second, that's when it started. LSU, you have the 1-out double by Hernandez, which I want to talk about him a little bit too. He gets to third on a wild pitch. After a walk to Milam, you manufacture a run. Stanfield with a beautiful squeeze bunt up the first base line, just deadened it to where the catcher had to leave home plate and come out and make the play. Clears the way for Hernandez to come home, and you're on the board with 1. So already you can look at that and say, that's better. You had the extra base hit. You drew the walk, and then you manufactured the run home. That's good. When you're struggling offensively, get it across any way you can, right? Get it how you live. Get it where you can. 3rd inning, kind of the same deal. Curiel leads off with the infield single to second. After a ground out by Jones, which was basically a swinging bunt, it allowed Curiel to advance. Josh Pearson comes up. He finds himself in a 1-1 count, and goes backside, double down the left field line. Curiel easily comes around. After a walk, you'd have 2 outs, and you can't push anything else across. You strand Pearson and Dickinson. But you're on the board up 2-0. And all the while, Chase Shores is carving the lineup, the Omaha lineup up. And we're going to get back to Shores, but I want to stick with the offense here. So you're feeling better. You're already off to a better start offensively. You've got 2 runs in the first 3 innings. It's much more akin to what you saw on Friday night. You've manufactured a run and you've driven one in, which, again, is key. But you're still waiting for that big inning. And that happened in the 4th, the 6th, and the 7th. In the 5th, you lead off single by Milam. Stanfield follows that up with a single. That was after Milam had advanced to second on a wild pitch. So now you have runners at the corners. Tanner Reeves, sac fly. Curiel, his second hit of the night. And then Jared Jones with the single through the third baseman. This was the play where it kind of kicked off the third baseman, went into the outfield, and Derek Curiel scored all the way from first base off of that. And boom, you've got a 3 spot. You're up 5-0, and now you're feeling really, really good. Jared Jones would add 3 more RBI in the game for a 3-hit, 5 RBI day. Fantastic spot for him. He would add another. He would add a double as well throughout the game. And then when you get to the 7th, this was when you really, really saw it and said, okay, wait a minute. That's what you've seen the rest of the way so far up to this point. You put up the 4 spot, but and the big blow was Jones with the 2 RBI single through the left side through the 6 hole. But then you also have Dalton Beck come up with a double, a single down the right field line. So there you saw a guy come off the bench have the knock, just like you did in week 1 with a guy like Larson doing that, or Ethan Fry, or things of that nature, and that showed off the depth, again, of LSU's lineup, and that's really good. Ultimately, it ends up in a 12-run output on 13 hits. So what changed? Well, a few things. LSU, in that first game of the doubleheader, so game 2, they were just all out of sorts. They were very out of character. They got away from their plan, and that started in the 6th inning on Friday. They were chasing pitches, and they were popping the ball up, hitting it in the air. And on a weekend like that at the box, you can't do that. In that 3rd game, the message got through to them once again, and you saw guys shorten up. You saw bat on the ball, getting on top of the baseball, line drives, ground balls hit hard through the infield. And on cold, windy, rainy days, that's how it's going to have to go. And I know a lot of people have questions about power on this team, and we'll get to that because I have some thoughts. We will get to that in this show. But LSU looked so much more controlled in the ball game on Saturday night. In that one, LSU walked 6 times and punched out only 5 times. Again, much more akin to what you have seen. That's them shortening up, using the backside of the field, on top of the ball, everything that we just talked about. You compare that to Friday night, they punched out 8 times. You compare that to game number 2, you punch out 6. 14 times in the first 2 games, 5 in the second. I will also remind you, LSU week 1 struck out 13 times total. You struck out 14 times in those first 2 games, more than you did in an entire weekend. So it looks as though they've gotten back on track. A couple of things, and we'll wait and see, because you'll play Nichols Monday, and then the competition will ratchet up. I'm not sitting here and telling you that LSU's offense is perfect and they're going to go forward and we're never going to have an issue again the rest of the season. You will. You're going to face some really good pitchers that are going to be able to hold you down, because that's how the SEC goes. And that That just happens really kind of to everybody throughout the course of a season. But a couple of things. We have the power numbers that people want to talk about, and LSU's hit 5 home runs through 7 games. And the runners left on base. So let's take them one by one, because I have a few thoughts on each. Let's start with the power numbers. And I know a lot of people are concerned about this because it's 5 homers in 7 games. I mean, you look at Jared Jones, he's got 1. Jared Jones hit three homers in the first weekend a season ago, on his way to 28. This is what I will say about the power numbers. We have talked since preseason that this team does not have the same amount of power in the lineup as years past here. They don't. It's not to say they have no power. Like, I still think, even with the slow start, that Jared Jones is a 20 home run guy, maybe a little bit more. It's just, I mean, it's kind of what he's done. Now, you have to find the right person behind him in order to really make that work. And they're still searching for that. But I still believe Jones is that guy. Do you have another person on this team that reaches that? No, probably not. But what I think you do have is a handful of guys that can get to 12, 13, in that rate, 10, 12, in that 13, in that range of home runs. I think Jake Brown is a guy that can do that on this team. I think Steven Milam potentially has a chance to do that. The guy hit 8 a season ago. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility there. Danny Dickinson, is he going to hit the 17, 18 homers he hit at Utah Valley a year ago? No, probably not. But I think that's another guy who can get to 12, 13, maybe even 14, 15 home runs in your lineup. Like, if I had to look at this right now and say, okay, who's going to be the second leading home run hitter on this team, I'd probably tell you Danny Dickinson. Because quite honestly, he should already have a couple. But, Josh Pearson has sneaky pop in the bat. As a freshman, he had 9 homers, or 8 or 9 homers. He's played in every game so far. It's just going to be more spread out, and it's going to have to come from multiple guys. You don't have Tommy White and Jared Jones to just completely lead the way. And that's ultimately where your numbers dwindle a little bit. The way I have put it is I think this team can get to 95 to 100 homers. They're not going to hit, 144. They're not going to do that. But there is power in this lineup. Why hasn't it shown? I really think it is as simple as the weather they have had to play in the first 2 weeks sucks. And that has not been the case the last couple of years. LSU has been very fortunate to have very, very good weather in February the last few seasons. And when I say that, I don't mean that it wasn't chilly, but you had a south wind. You've had a south wind one time this season, and it was the second game of the year, and LSU hit 3 homers. Every other game at the box, they have been hitting into the wind, and they have hit a handful of balls that would have been out of the park had it not been for the wind. And I know what you're going to say. Well, Omaha found the fence one time. There was 1 home run hit between these 2 teams in 3 games. It was cold, it was rainy, and the wind was blowing in. Whereas opposed to the last 2 years, you've had the south wind blowing out, and the one time you've had it this year, LSU has launched the ball. And one of them was wind aided. That was the one that Dickinson hit. But Danny also hit a ball, I believe it was Friday, that without the wind is clear out of the park. Tanner Reeves, the first time he put the bat on the ball, game 3, was an opposite field shot where the guy just kept going back, and he catches it, right short of the warning track. You have a south wind, that ball's out of the park. Jared Jones flew out to the warning track in right field. You don't have the wind, that's out of the park. You see what I mean? That does matter. The conditions factor in. They will change, and I think you will see this LSU team start to find the fence. So I am not freaking out about the power numbers yet. The other thing, the amount of guys left on base. And I have kind of a twofold take on this. Jay Johnson, since he got to LSU in 2022, has always talked about the way they play offense is going to lead to more guys left on base. And he's right. Like they put a lot of guys on. Normally they aren't aggressive stealing and things of that nature. They're been a little bit more that way this season, and that's to compensate for a few other areas of the offense. And I thought they were actually much better at that this weekend than they were a weekend ago. But he's right. This is a conversation we've had all the time. But that also doesn't make it okay. And here's what I mean. The example that he's talking about is Game 3 Saturday night, where LSU scores 12 runs on 13 hits and leaves 9 guys on base. 9 guys is a lot of guys. That's a lot of runners to leave on. That is. And you can get down with that because that shows your offense is functioning at the optimal level that Jay Johnson wants it to. His plan, his rhythm on off is working when that happens. And it's not you don't have to score double digits every time, but you know what I mean. You're scoring 7, 8 runs and you're leaving 10, 11 guys on. Okay, that's working. The reason I say it doesn't make it okay is because of what happened from the 6th inning Friday through the 8th inning Game 1 Saturday, where LSU doesn't score and you leave 13 guys on base. And that is an issue. And that leads to things needing to be corrected. Now, they got them corrected. But, yeah, you can say we're going to leave a lot of guys on base. That's just the way we play offense. And, okay. But when you're not scoring at all and you're still leaving those guys on base, that points to something's not right. So you saw a lot of that a season ago. And I think that's where this comes into an area of concern, right? Because, we all want this offense to be better, and I think that it is. But when you see something like that early in the year, you can get a little, touchy-feely around the subject. But what was huge and where I think you see the sign of difference is the bounce back was so strong and so emphatic where you got back on track. Now, what's going to be key is following that up against Nichols on Monday and then against DBU, who's going to be ranked when you play them on Wednesday. And then you'll face 2 teams that were in the tournament a year ago over the weekend. Competition's about to ratchet up. We're going to see just how back on track they are. This is happening at the perfect time, in my opinion. All right, we're going to talk about the pitching, but I got to remind you about GotLit Light Installers, GotLitLights.com. Looking to illuminate your space, your outdoor area, all around your home. GotLit Lights now offers those services. You want to upgrade your backyard. Maybe you just put in a pool. You need some lighting around. Bring in the ambiance. Really illuminate it. Everything's better when it's lit. GotLit Lights can take care of that with their permanent landscape lighting. Doesn't have to just be your backyard. Maybe you have some flower beds, some trees you want to light up. GotLit Lights can do that. Really take the curb appeal of your home to the next level. That's what GotLit Lights is here to do. And then, of course, they now offer lighting for private events, parties, anniversaries, weddings, graduations, anything of that nature. GotLit Lights has you covered. It's simple. How do you get involved? Musso, this sounds great. How do I do it? You go to GotLitLights.com, and right there on the homepage, you hit quote, get a quote. You get a quote. Derek, his team will reach out. And once they do, I promise you, you're not going to want to work with anybody else other than GotLit Lights. GotLit Light Installers, GotLitLights.com. Proud to bring you Musso at the box here this baseball season. Pitching. We went a long time there on the offense. So pitching. let's start with the starters, and we'll start with Chase Shores. That was a huge spot for him. That's the other thing. That's why, God, you don't want to lose any games. I get that. You never do. You never want to lose games. But what that did was in his second start of the season, and second start in almost 2 years coming back from Tommy John, that put Chase Shores immediately into a leverage start. And that was huge to see how he was going to go out there and respond. And you couldn't have really asked for anything better. I mean, he goes out there, and in the first inning, on a weekend where you saw guys lack velocity in certain areas, Chase Shores is his normal 97. You saw the 98s. He does have the walk, but he pitches around it, and no damage is done. And in the second, he became more dominant. That's where he started to find the swing and the miss. Had 2 strikeouts to start that inning, and then a fly out. He was kind of just off and running from there. It was really, really, really encouraging from Shores to see him follow up what was a great start in the opening weekend with another great one. And doing that in a leverage spot while extending the pitch count. And that's something that we talked about in the preview. What did you want to see from Chase Shores? First and foremost, you want to see him pitch well enough to get deep in the game. And once you do that, you want to see him take that next step. 67 pitches in week 1, 84 in week 2, 55 of them for strikes. You look up, it's another 5-inning performance, 3 hits, no runs, 2 walks, and 6 punch-outs. He was awesome. You look up his 84th pitch of the night. You're wanting him to hold velocity. 84th pitch of the night, 96 miles per hour, and it was a swing and miss by Zapay and a strikeout. I could not come out of this weekend feeling better about Chase Shores. If everyone's wondering, is he going to move up in the rotation? A night like Saturday night shows you that, yeah, he probably will at some point. But I will continue to say, if it comes together in front of him and you can have him in that spot that you just saw him in, or you have a rubber match and you got this 6'8" monster out there firing 98 mile per hour seeds and holding that velocity and only losing a couple miles per hour when he's in the mid 80s of his pitch count, you have that guy on Sunday. Oh, heads up. Then you're talking about arguably having the best rotation in the country. But there is not a box that Chase Shores didn't check in that game on Saturday. Saturday night. He was awesome. That was the guy we have all heard about, and you saw him there. Now, it's not a finished product. There's some things you want to see. One of those things, well, I love that he got up to 84. And look, next week, I want to see him get into the 90s. Can he add 10 more pitches or so? Can he get you through the 6th? But the other thing is the efficiency. Chase Shores was extremely efficient week 1. 67 pitches in 5 innings. It was chilly. First start back. It makes sense pulling him. I think they would have loved to have gotten him through 6, but the efficiency lacked a little earlier in the game. And that was something we talked about with Anthony Ianson in our immediate reaction after game number 2, the first game of the doubleheader, was Ianson did it again, right? He was at 43 pitches after 2 innings, and then he settles in and gets you through 6. After in the 3rd, he had 10 pitches, in the 4th, 12, and in the 5th, 12. And that's what got him into that 6th and got him out. That's great. What I want to see is the efficiency show up a little earlier in the game. Let's see if he can get you 7, 8 innings. And the same kind of goes for Shores. Not 7 or 8 yet, but can he get you a little bit more efficiency? Can he return to that form he had week 1 and get you into the 6th here in week 3? And we'll talk plenty more about that. But that was a huge box check watching Chase Shores in that spot. He handled it like a veteran. He handled it like it was a place he had been in a million times. And in reality, that is the first time in his career that Chase Shores has been handed the baseball in a rubber match situation against the same team, needing to win a weekend and being asked to actually get you length. And he did it. He passed with flying colors. That was awesome. I thought Ianson was obviously great. The only thing is we'll say, that pitch got down earlier in the game. After 2 innings opening week, he was around 40, got you through 5 through 81. And then, as I said, he was at 43 after 2 innings, game number 1, but he settled in, got you 93 and got you through 6. Cade Anderson. A lot of people are worried about Cade Anderson, and I'm just not there yet. I'm sorry. It's been 2 starts, and I think he's been very, very good. I kind of think he's been phenomenal outside of 1 inning because he has been. That was a great start from Cade Anderson on Friday night. It ended in a very tough way. That ended tough for what was a great start. And he just lost command with his fastball, and that caused some issues. I know a lot of people are wondering about the velocity and him sustaining it, and I'm not even there yet with him either. Because there is not a time that I remember a year ago with Anderson starting against the same caliber of teams that he is right now and going 5 innings and all of that his velocity dipped. So I don't really necessarily know what it is. I want to wait and see him get into some better conditions, see if he can actually work himself up into a lather, and let's see what he's got. I'm not there yet on the velocity just concerns from Cade Anderson. It's going to be warmer for him, provided he starts that first game in Frisco. That game will be at 2 p.m., and the high is 75. Looked it up a night ago. You can get in the groove there. So I'm really curious to see what it looks like for him in that game from a velo standpoint before I really speak on it. But your starting rotation checked every box for you again. 2 of them got the win, and Ianson got a no decision. They were awesome. Roll with it forward. Now the bullpen. We're going really long here. Now the bullpen. I thought you saw some separation in some areas. And it starts on Saturday in game number 1. Scoreless game. LSU goes to Grant Fontenot. He hits the first 2 batters that he faces. One of them in an 0-2 count, and he's out of the game. That's a quick hook. They gave him the opportunity, said, go see what you've got. It did not work out. I'm not saying you never put Grant Fontenot in that spot ever again. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you give up on him and he's just banished to the bench. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, in that spot, I think now you looked at someone else for the time being. He kind of goes to the back of the line, so to speak, in that spot. Because you have guys like Case and Evans who have shined in the close games. We didn't even see William Schmidt this weekend against Omaha. You got the game against Nichols coming up where I'm sure he'll pitch. You've seen Zach Cowan come in and beat Nails twice. When you have that many arms to really keep pace, you have to nails. You have to kind of be nails every time, at least this early in the season. Again, I'm not sitting here telling you that I think Grant Fontenot is never going to get that opportunity again. He probably will at some point. But for now, probably more towards the back of the line. Jacob Myers. The stuff is just so good when he locates it. And you saw that in his first outing. And then Saturday night, you saw everyone's fear, where he issues 4 free passes and a run comes across without the benefit of a hit. And if you're going to pitch out of the bullpen, that cannot happen. That can't happen in general, but it really can't happen out of the bullpen. You have to come in and throw strikes. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm not there yet. I think the kid is wildly talented. He's a great kid, and he works really hard. And I think with some more work, there's a point in this season where he could be extremely valuable to LSU. But I'm not there yet. So I think you saw a little bit of separation there. And then there's Connor Benj. And this one's really hard to judge because Connor Benj was put in a really tough spot, and it was made even more difficult when they asked him to throw the ball to second base, and he threw it into center field. Please don't get me started on that again. And then he comes back, strikeout, and it looks like he's about to get out of this by limiting the damage to only 2, and then he gives up the home run. The difference here is I don't think they're going to stop with Connor Benj in that spot. I think he absolutely gets another chance. I think what you could see is Connor Benj come in next time to start that inning. Because when he did that Friday, it was really good. Now, the other part of this is that was his second day in a row. They're trying that out. Is he a guy that can pitch twice in a weekend? They believe so, but you're just going to have to try that out a little more. So I don't think you're done seeing him in that role, and I'm okay with that. I really like the stuff, and he's a veteran presence, which you don't really have a lot of in that bullpen in those high leverage spots. You're going to count on Cooper Williams and William Schmidt and Maverick Rizzi and Casey Evans an awful lot. But overall, your pitching staff was phenomenal again. And that's the encouraging thing with this whole weekend. While your offense dipped, and you don't want that to happen, and it was absolutely a problem, your pitching staff kept you in the games and won you a game in spite of that. And that is a difference from a year ago, early in the kind of mid to mid conference play. That is a difference. That is an area where I look and I go, okay, this team is better. And I say that in the sense because, yes, LSU's pitching did carry them through some of the games early as well. I don't want to make it sound like they were horrible because they weren't. They were actually really good early in the season. But I say it was different because they had success with everything that they had success with in week 1. LSU walked 10 and struck out 36. That's a really, really, really good ratio. And a few of those walks came with the game out of hand Saturday night. Don't take them out. They count. That's why we tell you. But 10 walks, 36 punch-outs. You were all over the zone again. You only gave up 8 runs total over the course of the weekend, and 7 of them were earned. 2 starters got you into the 6, 1 got you through, and the other one got you 5. So you had 3 more quality starts. The LSU pitching staff early looks like the strength of this team. And the offense, the bounce back that they had after they went into their lull is also different. And they're more multifaceted so far this season. And once the power comes, I think they have a chance to be really, really good. These are all thoughts and opinions right now. The sample size has to continue to grow with this team. And you're about to get your biggest test. And I'm fired up to see it. But the next one is against Nichols Monday night, 6 p.m. at the box. You've got plenty of arms available. And that should be one that LSU is able to go out there and assert their will in that baseball game. But you have to continue to see them build now. The last thing you want, because look, it's going to be in the low 50s, high 40s when they're playing that game. The last thing you want to see is them revert back to what happened from the 6th inning Friday through the 8th inning on Saturday. And if that does, that's great momentum to take into your biggest week of the season thus far. We'll see how they go. That's a success, y'all. You're not going to win them all. No one goes 56-0. Would you like to go through your non-conference slate undefeated? Of course. None of Jay Johnson's teams have done that to this point. You're going to drop one. Well, you did. Now, you responded great in the immediacy. How do you respond going forth? You have 2 more weeks of pre-conference play before you welcome in Missouri. We still have a lot to learn about this team. But they're 6-1. You got long, long way to go and a lot of baseball left to play. And I'm fired up to watch it and cover it with all of you here. So a successful weekend for the Tigers. They take 2 out of 3. They'll face Nichols Monday night. That's going to wrap it up. Y'all smash the like, get subscribed on your way out. Podcast and on the YouTube channel. Go see my friends over at Got Lit Lights as well. We'll have more for you next time on Musso at the Box.